Willkommen zur deutschen Vereinigung. Okay, welcome to German and Italian unification. Let's get started. Starting off with unification of Germany. So before the Napoleonic age, before Napoleon, Germany had been split into small kingdoms. Once Napoleon comes along, he will conquer all of these little Bavarian kingdoms, German kingdoms, and unite them together. Now, although he united them, remember that one of the big impacts of Napoleon's rule was nationalism, and specifically with conquered peoples. They were resistant towards French rule. They felt nationalism towards their own identity, culture, and wanted to be ruled themselves. So Germans, not really being too satisfied with French rule, will split up again after Napoleon's defeat, but they will not remain divided for long because of Otto von Bismarck. And he's going to want to unify Germany again, but under German rule through a series of 3 wars. And we're going to call this strategy, he called this strategy, blood and iron. So unification through warfare, right? Through spilling blood and using iron, swords, firearms in order to make Germany whole. Blood and iron. I'm not going to negotiate with you to become whole. I'm just going to shoot you and beat you into submission. The 3 wars are the Danish War, where they were able to seize land from Denmark. The second war was the Austro-Prussian War, where they took more territory from Austria, and after that happened, the northern German states joined. This looks like a good idea. We're winning 2 wars now. We're going to fight with you. And the final war was the Franco-Prussian War, where Bismarck's going to use nationalism, again, the idea of unification of united Germany, ruled by German people, to provoke a war with France. And as a result of that, the South German states are going to join as well and say, yeah, we want to unify Germany too. We want to punch the French in the nose too because Napoleon took us over. We're still a little salty about that. And they're going to join in as well. This all comes to fruition in 1871, where the German states will unite under one king, King Wilhelm I, and he's going to take the role of Kaiser, which is derived from the Roman term, ancient Roman term, Caesar, right? Or Julius Caesar. So Kaiser comes from Caesar. Remember that for a little bit later. So that's German unification. Let's look at Austria and Hungary now, because they're kind of right next door to Germany. So while all of this German unification is going on, what's happening with the Austro-Hungarian Empire? Now, Austria-Hungary was ruled by the Habsburgs, who were probably the oldest blue blood royal family in all of Europe. There were Habsburgs on the Spanish throne, the Austrian throne. They were this big, powerful ruling family for hundreds of years. And they were famous for a lot of inbreeding. The guy on the lower right-hand corner of the screen, that was probably one of the last Habsburgs, Charles II of Spain. And you can see the results of the inbreeding of this family. They had really significant, terrible jaw problems that you can see there. Now, that's a portrait. It's a little bit idealized. Historical accounts, poor Charles II was probably a lot uglier than that. He had drooled a lot due to the jaw problem, had trouble eating, had trouble speaking, and therefore did not speak that much, horrified his wife. So this tells you inbreeding bad, spread the bloodline around. But let's move on to the current ruler of Austria-Hungary during this time period, from the 1900s, late 1800s, and that was Franz Joseph of Austria, kind of sitting there with all of his medals, looking like a grandpa. But let's look at what specifically did the Austro-Hungarian Empire rule in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Included parts of Romania, as you can see on the map, Poland, Ukraine, northern Italy, and there were a lot of different ethnic groups in this territory. And remember, Napoleon, result of Napoleonic age, nationalism. Because of nationalism, they're all going to want their own state and their own government for their ethnic group. So by 1908, Austria-Hungary took more territory, part of Serbia, which is going to upset the Serbian people. They wanted to govern themselves. They didn't want to be under the Austro-Hungarian Empire with the rest of the ethnic groups in that part of the world. Keep this in your back pocket for a little bit later, because a couple of Serbs are going to get really annoyed, and so annoyed that they're going to attempt to start a war as a result of this. Italian unification. Benvenuti all'unificazione italiana. So, since the fall of the Roman Empire, if you recall, the Roman Empire fell, split into East and West, and the western part of the empire, kind of the weaker part of the empire, had been split into many small states, and this was the same of Italy as well. As you can see on the map, you had Sardinia, northern Italy, Florence is over there, the Papal States, Sicily was kind of its own little empire, it was its own little country too, Venezia on the top, Lombardy, so all little tiny small Italian states, Italian kingdoms. Now, in Italy, there were three main leaders of nationalism that's going to help unify Italy. The first is Giuseppe Mazzini, who's known as the Soul, and he was the writer. He was kind of the academic of the group, and his speeches and writings will inspire Italian nationalism and Italian unification, and will make unification seem very popular to other Italians living in this part of the world. The second part of this trio is Count Camillo Cavour, known as the Brain, and he's going to believe in this concept known as realpolitik, meaning basically using realistic government actions and politics based on the need of the state, and he'll use diplomacy and war to unite northern Italy. The idea behind realpolitik is that you're thinking about the good of the entire state, of the entire country, and not just your leadership, in order to run your country. The last in this trio is Giuseppe Garibaldi, known as the Sword, so he's the kind of violent guy, and he's going to lead a group of soldiers known as Red Shirts, and he will help unite southern Italy, control southern Italy, and unite it with the north that Count Cavour had been able to accomplish. In 1861, we have a king crowned in Italy, specifically Victor Emmanuel of Sardinia, that kind of mid-sized island on the left-hand side of the map. And although Italy was unified by 1861, there was still a lot of unrest and conflict. Not everyone living in Italy was on board with unification, and the most significant part of Italy that was not on board was the Catholic Church and the Papal States, specifically Rome, Vatican City. They're going to resist the new government. They're going to want to maintain their autonomy and not be ruled by King Victor Emmanuel. So the Catholic Church is going to resist the new government. They're not going to want to be part of it and remain independent. They will be acquired by the kingdom in 1870, but there will be some resistance there. So the Ottoman Empire, what's going on in the Ottoman Empire, present-day Turkey, Middle East, when all of this is going on? Like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, this is home to other ethnic groups as well. There are Serbs living in the Ottoman Empire, Greeks, Bulgarians, Romanians, and initially, in the early days of the Ottoman Empire, they will accept diversity without too much complaint. However, once Napoleon rises and falls, they're going to kind of see the impact of all of this nationalism upsurge that they saw in, they're going to see it in Latin America that we learned about previously. They're going to see it in Germany and Italy, and they're going to crack down on these small minority groups in an attempt to preemptively keep them from gaining their independence, fighting their independence. It's not going to work. These ethnic groups will start asking for more self-rule and for independence. And the first ones we're going to see getting their independence is Greece. And they've been under Ottoman control since the fall of the Byzantine Empire, so for hundreds of years. And they're going to fight quite a bloody war against the Ottomans to win their independence, and they will get that in the 1830s. The Serbians are going to revolt and get some form of self-rule, but not independence from the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottomans are going to tell them, you can govern yourselves, but we're not giving you your own country. Ottoman Empire also had a few problems regarding modernization. During the Industrial Revolution, the kind of mid-1800s, while the rest of Europe is industrializing and making factories and changing their farm practices in order to satisfy this new industrialization, the Ottoman Empire is not going to do that. And the fact that they don't industrialize and they were kind of cut out of Atlantic trade due to the new trade routes found by the Spanish and the Portuguese in the 1400s. Economically, they're going to become really incredibly weak by the late 1800s, early 1900s. In fact, they will become known as the sick man of Europe and also as the powder keg of Europe, just because of how much unrest is going to take place in the region. And the cartoon on the right-hand side of the screen is kind of showing the extent of that unrest. This cartoon came out right at the start of World War I, and it's showing all of the other European powers that are trying to sit on that powder keg, on that Ottoman Empire with all of its trouble in the Balkans, kind of the eastern part of Europe, saying, maybe we can keep this contained and make sure that this region doesn't explode. But leading up to World War I, the entire world was looking at the Ottoman Empire and looking at the Balkans and all of this unrest that was happening and just saying, all right, when is the you-know-what going to hit the fan over here? And it does in a big way at the start of World War I. However, that's another story for another time. Just know for now that Ottoman Empire, lots of different ethnic groups, Greek independence in the 1830s, didn't industrialize, economically weak, nationally weak due to the many different ethnic groups. And this is an empire, along with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, that you're not going to see survive after World War I. It's going to just be split up into many different countries based on ethnic backgrounds, or at least in the Ottoman Empire. That's going to be after World War I. Europe's going to basically split up that empire into whatever the heck they want, basically, and that's going to lead to more problems down the road. What are you going to look for on the regions? I mentioned this in our last video, I believe, but in the August 2019 exam, there was a series of multiple choice questions on Latin American revolutions. The enduring issues essays, if you see anything about Italian unification, German unification, or trouble in the Balkans, nationalism is going to be probably a big enduring issue that you could use for that. Make sure that 3 to 4 of the documents have to do with that theme, and you'd be in good shape. I'd say on the old Regents exam, there'd usually be maybe 1 or 2 questions on Italian and German unification, so I'm not entirely sure to what extent you're going to be asked about this material on the exam in June, but it's always good to have this in your back pocket for some nice outside information. That's all I've got for you today. I will see you in class. Complete that fill-in guide while you listen to this, and arrivederci. Ciao.